Hi. I landed in my chair at the very nick of time. And yeah, I was going to make a truly inappropriate joke that I will not that I won't joke inappropriately on this show tonight, but I'm just not going to start off the evening that way. Good evening. My name is Jamilah Lemieux. Welcome to The Kids Are Asleep, Slate's evening parenting-ish chat show. I am a contributor to the Clay. I am a contributor to Slate's Care and Feeding Parenting column, as some of you know, as well as the co-host of Mom and Dad Are Fighting, Slate's parenting podcast. And on Thursday nights, we get ratchet, we get drinks, we talk. Sometimes we talk about kids and parenting. Sometimes we just talk about other things. I'm a very special guest tonight that I'm so excited to introduce to you all. But before I bring him on out into the virtual heat of my living room, and it is very hot in here. Who thought that they could live in Southern California without air conditioning? It just never got hot enough in my house to warrant one. And I was kind of like, hey, here I am saving money. And so now I'm in here sweating and sweltering while looking for another apartment because it's time to go. The lease is up. So do I put in a new air conditioner in a place that I'm about to leave, or do I just sweat it out? Who knows? This week we sweated it out. Anyway, I can't believe it's been an entire year that I've been in California. Actually, it hasn't. It'll be a year in October, but we're rounding up on a year, right? Which is why I'm looking for an apartment. And, no matter how crazy things are in the world, no matter how wacky and frightening the election cycle and the current administration are, no matter how bizarre and different our lives are because of COVID, one thing that remains unchanging is the passing of time. And time is, in fact, passing, and it's passing very quickly. I'm pretty sure that every 3 weeks I begin PMS again and I have to pay rent again. And it just happens every 3 weeks, period, and rent, period, and rent. And so while we're having this sort of Groundhog Day experience as adults, our children are, of course, passing time and growing and changing just as rapidly as they were before. I've noticed that my daughter, who is 7, is at that point where she oftentimes reflects on what life was like when she was little. It's one of my favorite things about her to hear somebody who still thinks themselves small enough to get on my lap. Note that I said thinks themselves to be small enough because my daughter weighs almost 60 pounds. And even though I am a tall, strapping woman, I can't say that a 60-pound person with long arms and long legs comfortably fits on even my thighs at this point. But this person who thinks of herself as lap size still is also reflecting on what life was like when she was little. She said something to me not too long ago that I think about often. She told a story about a boy who had given her a little trouble, a little bullying-ish situation that went on. I'll say bullying-ish because we nipped it in the bud real quick. But when she thinks back on it, she says, look, I was little then. I'm a big girl now. I'll get you. Right? Like she talks about this boy as if she's reflecting on Vietnam or something and, what she could have done differently in the trenches. She's like, look, don't mess with me now. I'll get you. Because she is a big person now, right? She was once a little person and now she sees herself as a very big person. I also have an adorable joke to go with that, but I can't open up my notes, so I'm just talking. But anyway, so to see somebody who still thinks themselves small enough to be on a lap, also seeing themselves as formerly little, I know what it was that she said. She was talking about I asked her to think about changes and challenges rather that she's gone through in her life. And she said to me that, hey, when I was little, the big kids didn't always want to play with me. That was something I had to go through in my life. She describes it as if it's a serious period of trauma. I'm pretty certain that she's talking about like one instance, like maybe one particular birthday party where there were some older kids who didn't want to play with her because people always want to play with her. She's lit. And she thinks of it as something that she had to go through in life when she was younger to get to this next stage. So it's amusing, right? It's sweet and it's funny to watch somebody be so, I think, ensconced in their own development and just so clear on, and so having so much time to think about, here I am, here's where I was today, and here's where I am right now. Because that's not something that most of us do on a regular basis as we should, right? We don't think about who we were before and who we were in our youth. we oftentimes are forced to deal with what's before us. And when you're a kid, it's like everything is before you. And yet, being little, which is right around the corner, is still this deeply fascinating time in your life. When I think of somebody who has known me through a lot of periods of times in my life, who has known me since I was a true youth, not the pretend youth that I am today, um, I go to, of course, my one of my dearest friends, William Bryant Miles, who I'm so excited to welcome into the conversation. William is well, he's a multi hyphenate. He's a creative. He's a director. He's a producer. He's a writer. He's a singer. He should be a stand up comedian. He's one of the funniest human beings I've ever met in my life. He's a genius. And William has been one of my best friends since we were freshmen at Howard University. And of course, Howard University has gotten a lot of attention lately because one of our fellow Bison, Senator Kamala Harris, is officially the nominee for the VP ticket with the Democratic Party. We have the first woman of color to be on a presidential ballot at all at this level, to officially receive the nomination from her party, for her party to take her candidacy and her interest in politics seriously at all. And so the whole world has had their eyes somewhere in the vicinity of Howard University, it seems, in ways that typically not the case unless there's some sort of headline relating to Howard in the news. It's been kind of interesting to watch. So part of the reason that I wanted to have my good buddy on, and I wanted to have him on the show at some point anyway, was to talk about our times at Howard. And you can bring him on into the show, by the way. And Brett, my producer, is a Bison herself. I was killing time. I was like, at some point he's popping up more about, well, he's so fabulous. Now that we know that producer Britt is a very young Howard alum, I fully intend to, I won't say haze, I'll just say I'm going to bully you a little bit, give you a little Bisonly love. But anyway, William, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That's what the people say on these things, right? Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's always a great, what an honor to be on your show. 3 people watch, all 3 of them are going to see me. Thank you. I'm very grateful for this experience.
Clown.
Yes, but so I want to go back to the moment that we were first introduced. I can't say I remember the exact first time that I saw you, but I remember seeing you on campus, right? You were hard to miss. And as we were telling Britt before the show, you know, there's a quote that makes me think of myself and William and a few of our friends, but it certainly goes for William, especially William at 18, 19. It wasn't that I was dancing too fast. It was that the violins were playing too slow, right? So in a lot of ways, the violins of America have been playing too slow for the likes of William Bryant Miles for most of his life. And so he's got all this energy. He's a New York kid. He's wearing bright colors. He's gay and not closeted, which was when we entered college or when we started Howard University in 2002, a lot more radical and revolutionary than it should have been for that time in history. But it wasn't the most common set of experiences, right? To have somebody who's like, hi, I'm here, and yes, I am gay. This is not, you know, something that you all will speculate about and debate about and wonder and, you know, date me, even though, you know, yeah.
I think I was more like, hi, I'm gay, my name is William, when I came out.
That was exactly who you were. I'm pretty sure you wore pink 5-6 days a week. No, you wore a lot. You did wear a lot more pink back then. But it was, I liked you. It's a beautiful color, right? And I loved your but I loved your energy. And I think on some level there was some recognition of like, this might be the first time this person felt comfortable being that free. You know, because it was an experience a lot of us were having away from our families.
And we've spoken about this, but you know, Howard was the first time, like I came out in high school and I came out to my mother in high school. I came out to my close friends, but I never made a declaration in high school because it was senior year. Right. And I was, you know what, I didn't really enjoy, especially by the end of my high school experience, I didn't enjoy the school. So I never came out. So Howard was the first time that I walked into a space where like every room I walk into, I'm saying unabashedly, comfortably, excitedly, this is who I am. Like high school, by the time I graduated, it wasn't a secret, but I never stood up and said, I'm gay. And so that's why I think I came to Howard like, hi, I'm gay. My name is William.
Yes, that's exactly who you were. And so I think there was on some level before we were even friends, I felt protective of you. You know, like I just felt the anxiety of like if one of these people fucks with that kid right there, you know what I mean? Like I hope nobody gives him a hard time because I'm not going to be okay with that, you know. Um, but I had brightly colored hair. It was more in the orange copperish. Now I think back on it, I'm like, did I like dye my hair before I went to school? Like, why did I not have a fresh cut and color for college? Like, why did I start out with my own like fairy or whatever? Why don't I have a fresh cut and color now? It's a
I think
pandemic.
you
I have
thought
an
you had a
excuse.
fresh
But
cut
back
and
then,
color. I think you
I
thought you had a.
probably did think I had.
I think you thought
I
that was
probably
fresh.
did. I probably did think that was fresh. And I had brightly colored big hair, and so we're in near the booty wall, which was in front of the quadrangle, one of
It's,
the big dorms on campus for freshman girls. No, the wall is gone.
no, they put it back. I
They
thought
put
after
the
they
kids
did
put
the
the wall.
because they did all this construction on the quad. They have like these glass panels. They brought the quad into the
Mm-hmm.
21st century. They brought it back. I think. I
Okay.
don't go there.
Okay. I hope so. I don't go there no more. But there was a wall where, you know, people hung out all hours of the night. Well, not all hours of the night. It was HBCU, so we had curfews and rules and stuff that most adults don't. But anyway, he sees me and my big hair and colors and stuff, and he immediately likens me to both Jill
Telling
Scott
the story
and
wrong. You
Khalees.
already told the
Do
story
the
wrong.
song. Do the song. I'm doing the story
Yeah,
all wrong. You
because
tell the
you
story.
missed the first part of the story, right? So the first part of the story was before we came to Howard, there was this book that had all of the incoming
Oh, the
students,
book.
whoever submitted their photos, and Jamila and I both submitted our photos. And so my best
Yeah.
friend from high school, rest
I
in
don't think
peace,
I have
Sean,
the book because it costs money.
but you were in it. So me and
I was in
Shanya
it.
went through.
Yeah, I just don't think we have the book.
We went through that
Mhm.
book page by page, and we gave everybody, because this is what we would do. We gave everybody names and backstories and uh, all kinds of crazy things. And yes, Edwin, we are drinking tonight. Cheers! I have a little bit of what is this? It's half iced tea lemonade and whiskey. So cheers.
I'm
We
drinking the mango scotto that Ternisha bought me last week. I'm still drinking it. I'm
I'm
committed
not
to finishing it. It's very strong.
I'm not dealing. Mango Scotto being strong, I can't. So we had decided that we could. You were one that, and this is probably true in real life. We couldn't decide if you were going to be Jill Scott or Khalees because you had the curly hair, and you know back then black girls,
Yes.
everybody had relaxed hair. So it's like she got natural hair,
Mm-hmm.
she's a figure, she's Jill Scott or she's Khalees. We couldn't decide which one you
Yes.
were. So then I see
Yes.
you on the booty wall, and so I'm like, oh my God, there goes Jill Scott Khalees, as if it's like actually Jill Scott or Khalees. So because
It's
a
so
normal
nice.
person would be like, hey, I saw your pictures, I think you're cool, we probably could be friends. That's what a
Yep.
normal person would do. Instead, I
A normal
thought
person.
I could be speaking code and just be like, randomly, I'm talking to someone else, probably talking to Charity or something. So I just randomly start being like, I hate you so much right now. Getting in the
Get
way.
in the way.
I hate you so much right now. Getting in the way. I don't know why I thought that that was going to be like cryptic or normal or whatever. But then you are equally crazy. And you were like, are you singing just that Khalees song? And I was like, I am. Let's be friends. And then there we are.
And here we are, all these
Here
years later. We still together.
we are in the house.
And what one more tender Howard memory I will share. If you look at our outfits, we are coordinated. We are both giving you animal print. And that is because this is an homage to a coat. William and I had joint custody of a surprisingly kind of fly from Old Navy, like leopard print, like trench coat
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think I bought it with the intention that we would share it. I think it just sort of happened that it became both of our coats somehow. And like you might pop up at an event where I was there and I'm like, oh, there's my coat because Will has it on. But anyway, here we are. We have been dancing faster than the violins can keep up for a very
And
long time.
even with that, like, why aren't more people sharing clothes, right? Like, with the way that the garment industry is wreaking havoc on our world, why aren't more
Yeah,
people sharing clothes? Like, we need to create more clothing collective. We are, like, more iconic and groundbreaking than we realize. You know what I mean? Like, we are truly the
yeah,
hope and dream of
it's entirely true. That makes a
this place.
whole lot of sense. So, like, you should let's drink to that. Let's drink to us being the hope and the dream of us slave, us sharing our clothes. But I think, well, you should move to California because then we could share clothes. And also, I'm so lonely at this point in my life that perhaps we could share a bed. I'm not, trying to make you uncomfortable or anything, but we've always had a great thing. This whole show, this was all a setup. I brought you here to propose.
Just put me on the spot. And I was watching the other one,
I
so
didn't
next
mean to
you over here like New York talking about I want my name dropped, meaning I want to
I
be
want my
married.
name dropped.
I want my
I
eggs
want my
cracked,
egg cracked.
meaning I want a
I got
child.
one egg.
You have one egg.
That's how I
I have
feel.
a lot of sperm,
I
but
think
I just waste them. I just waste sperm like what's an analogy for being wasteful? I waste sperm like
America.
right. I waste sperm like insert something really wasteful. Everybody knows that my rhymes are always tasteful.
Ow, 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 ow. Well, it's a great rapper too. We should definitely have a freestyle battle before this is over. So, speaking of that one egg that I have left to be cracked, the egg that I have had cracked and kept, of course, is Naima. Will is Naima's god, the one she made it. Congratulations to her. Will is Naima's godfather. He has been a treasured, beloved uncle in Naima's life since since she was. I didn't tell you till I made up my mind for sure. So I won't say since before she was planned on, but at the point in which I was having a baby, you were one of the first people to know. And Naima's love of William, this is getting to a place, there's a reason for it, is so profound and so pure and so sweet. And so one thing about having a friend like Will, he beats up on you a little bit. He's very smart, he's very witty, and oftentimes his love he'll give you a hard time, but it's tough love. He's trying to make you better, and sometimes he's just being an asshole, but more often than not he's well intentioned, right? And so now I posted a picture of my daughter wearing a quite matchy matchy, if you will, outfit not too long ago. So matchy matchy, meaning her colors was real coordinated. And so he made a comment about it being matchy matchy. It's on Instagram. And so she saw it, and I was going to explain to her, like, oh,
On the
it
grown
was
up
on my
page.
page. Yes, it was on the grown up page. He was not intending for her to see it. And it wasn't a mean comment, but he just said, we're looking a little matchy matchy. My niece and Uncle Will assist.
Matchy.
Yes, yes. So she saw it, and so I was going to explain. I was like, oh, Uncle Will is being, he can be a little bit of a hater, which I've had to explain to her in the past. But also, I'm from Chicago. Her dad's from Chicago. Sometimes we be super color coordinated. It's just part of her blood, part of her genealogy. And she thought that matching. She immediately came, and we're black, right? So she came up with this like immediate interpretation of what you were trying to say that she owned for herself, and I could not take it away from her because it was so pure. She said, "Oh, he misses me so much. He wants us to wear like matching outfits." And because I think she noticed that you had like a unicorn hoodie or something similar to an item that she has, and yes, so it's like he wants us to post pictures of us in our matching outfits, and even though we won't be together, we'll be matching. It's because he misses me. Like, duh, mommy, you're so silly for not noticing that. So, well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, this is a parenting-ish show, but obviously I think there's so many more things to talk about in the world that are interesting aside from parenting. I couldn't commit to having a second parenting show to do every single week. But the relationship between friends, like your friends' children, right? You and your friends' children. I think you specifically, a lot of your closest friends are women. A lot of us are mothers now, and you have been, you know, such an inextricable part of, of weddings and baby showers and being in, the hospital not long after the baby came out, right? Will's the only person who has a picture of my placenta. I've never seen it, but he managed to snap a picture of it. I won't. I still to this day I can't look at it, but Will has one. But like just being what it means. He says cute. What it means to be in like beloved community with your friends' children, to watch these people who you've loved and known and have grown up with become parents, and now knowing and loving these little reflections of us.
I mean, it's been a journey, right? Like, I'm very happy where I am now. And, like, full disclosure, I do not have any desire to have children of my own. You know what I mean? Like, and Jamilah knows this, is something that's been true about me forever. People keep saying, well, not Jamilah has said this, but people will say, oh, when you get older, it'll change. I'm not old, but I think I'm old enough to know how I feel about these things. And part of the reason why I also feel comfortable and excited in that choice is because I have the relationship with all of your kids, right? Like, So I'm not as worried that like, oh, well, when I'm old, who's going to care for me? It's like, well, if I play my cards right, hopefully Naima will care, or Sophie, Bryn, all
Right.
the other kids that exist. I'm like, just a numbers game. All I need is one to come see me. One
Right.
person to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that I get a funeral, that I'm not at
Oh,
Potter's feet. Just need one person to come collect the remains.
right.
Um, and the numbers game is stacking up. And so, but you were the first one to have a kid. So that was like such a journey, because I don't know how many people ever really talk about this in their friends group, but it's like when that first person has a baby, that is a paradigm shift for the whole crew, right? Especially
Yeah.
when the party girl is the one that has the baby first, right? So you were the one that was like always calling us out calling us to go out when we maybe were going
Yeah.
to, lay low or stay a little bit later. So that was like a moment of like, oh wow, we are shifting. And then it was crazy because when you got pregnant, there were so many people. It was like, I think I had like 5 babies come. It was you, Kat, Karen, Camilla, and my cousin,
Mm-hmm.
who is like my
Mm-hmm.
sister. All y'all babies are within the same year. And so that was like a shift in my mind of like, whoa, all my party girls, all my homegirls, where we just out here being single, sexy, and free, have all now
Mm-hmm.
made choices. And I want them to make these choices. It's their, not only their bodies, but their lives. And I want them to win. But it was a paradigm shift for me. But I think, it's been really exciting. And I like being the I don't want to say the loose peg, but because I don't have kids or attachments, they can call, well, y'all in LA now, so I'm not on the list anymore for you, but they can call me, oh, Naima's sick at school, someone needs to come get her. And oh my God,
Yep.
the first time I spent the night at my house, I was so paranoid. I was like, I don't know how parents do this every night. Like I did not sleep at all. I kept checking. I live on the second floor.
Oh.
I told you this. I never have had an issue with break-ins or anything like that.
Mm.
But I couldn't sleep. Like I just kept checking the windows, checking everything, making sure like the killer, like if you're gonna get anybody, get me. Like this little girl cannot, die on my watch. And she woke up so confused.
Um,
But we made it. So
it's interesting. One, it's fun. It's kind of funny to hear you acknowledge my role in the group as being the party girl. Because it's like I don't think it was until I was, as I know, as much as I've been in the industry, bitch, my whole life, I don't think I really recognized that about myself until I got to be a little bit older. Because I thought of myself as like the Black Power girl, the feminist girl first. And so it's like, and I think
those are
at
not.
some level, especially they're not, but like I think that I just thought it's like if everybody gets a 3-word bio, you know what I mean? If it's like, what's the headline for you? I kind of thought of that as how people see me first. But in our friend circle, I'm not that Jamilah, right? It's not that you all don't know that part of me, and not that you all didn't know that part of me probably before you knew the party part intimately, but like that, I guess I forget, like, yeah, that is because I don't know, it's weird. It's also the part of yourself that when I think about this weird thing of aging, right? And so like I still think of us as young. I don't often hear now that I'm 36, you'll be 36 soon. Sorry.
I did
I
not
hear
sign off.
other people.
I'm
I
Mariah
know.
Carey. I have an age. I have an anniversary coming up.
I know that's right. But like I've so many of our peers who are, our age or a little bit older, don't use the word young to refer to themselves. And like for me, it's one, I intend, we can all say we intend to be around here for a long time. That has not been, that's not the case for everybody. And we'll be fortunate to have every moment that we do. But even if we were to only make it to say only quote unquote 70, that's still only like, we're only
Halfway.
50% of the way done. You know what I mean? Right. So we're still youthful. We're still young. But like when you become a parent and when your friends become parent, I feel like my friends having kids aged me almost as much as Naima did. Right. Because it's like, it's one
Age
thing to be, pardon me,
matured, mature. I said nothing has aged me.
matured.
You
Yeah. Yes.
matured.
Yes. Matured.
But
Matured. But like yeah.
I think that the thing about age, right, and youthful, a part of the reason why I think that some of these people maybe don't identify with youthful is because they've stopped asking questions of themselves and of the world.
Mm.
And like, to me, that's why I think I'm always going to feel youthful. And even like my mom, who is legitimately 70, right? She refers to senior citizens as old people that she needs to help. And I'm like, you mean your
Yep.
friends? mean your peers. Like she'll be like, let me go volunteer at the senior citizens home. And I think it's because her mind is still curious and still learning new things. She's still working on, like, she's trying to get certified to be a parliamentarian and like working on new things, even though she's retired and has all her degrees or whatever, her, all her accomplishments. But to me, that is what the youthful is. It's the inquisitiveness, right? Or the inquisition. And I think that some people, when they have children, they start to think, oh, now that I have a child, I have all the answers that I have to give to this kid. And so that's why they start to feel old. And I don't think that's how you parent. And I actually don't think that's really how our friend circle parents, right? Like, I think half y'all are like, I got a kid, but like, if you don't really know me, you don't need to know that because I'm going to be in the club, which I love. None of y'all are like, I'm a mom. And then it's like, yeah, I have a kid. I did that. But, you got these bottles, which I love. But it's also just the inquisition, right? The questioning, the evolution. And I think that those people, our peers, some of those folks are just like, I got the house, I got the kids, I got the 1.5 dogs, I have the career, I'm done. And I'm just coasting. No
And
judgment.
it's interesting because, like, no judgment. And I think there are people who, like you said, there are people who are like, I've got the house, I've got the, I'm married, I've got certain things, I'm certain on what my career is, like I'm settled, like I've answered the great questions that life had for me. I've deemed them answered, and I love the way that you say this, the lack of inquisition it's not just that. So like on one hand, you have people who is like, I've answered life's big questions for myself, or at least I think I have. And I think there are others where it's like, maybe they're not as settled, maybe they're still trying to figure some things out, but because they're parents, they feel that they have to constantly, they are an authority figure now, right? So they feel they have to constantly be in this position of authority. And so being vulnerable, being youthful, being inquisitive, being playful, right? All these things that we associate, being sexy, being coquettish, like all these things that are natural human behaviors, but that we don't think of when we think of motherhood, right? We think of like that level of adulthood responsibility. I think of my own mom who had me at 36. And when I go back and look at the pictures, I'm like, oh, Mama Isoki was a bad bitch. Like little waist, big, you know what I'm saying? Like she's bad now. Right. Exactly. Like she took her time. She was living her best life and had me when she got to it, but because she became so much like, and now I have to be that authority and now I have to be mom, and again, like she's a boomer. Like they were the first generation to like have a real teenagehood and to be free in that way, even as kids, let alone like think about them trying to justify that 20 is the new 30 stuff, like to them it's like Moesha's parents. Like we are not Moesha's, and it's so funny because, like, yeah, if somebody's 2 or 3 years on the other side of you, you would say they're your age. That 2 year difference between me and Frank Mitchell or D Mitchell is so significant because I'm like, no, we are not the same age. She is older than me. He is older than me. But it speaks to we're different. We're different in so many ways.
Yeah.
Think about
When I was just, I had a whole.
Think about your.
What's the question?
Go ahead, babe. Well, I would like.
You go. The delay is.
We're not used to being polite to each other. I know it's the delay, and we're not used to like not cutting each other off because usually one person like, I'm just gonna keep going. But I just want to hear whatever you were gonna say anyway. But two, like that, and I think you were the first one to point out the Moesha's parents moment. It was like, this is gonna fuck you up when you go back and watch this. Because I feel like, and even when I watch the Babysitters Club, it's like these are obviously all children, right? But like, and I think part of it with Moesha is that Brandy is older than us. So even though like we're looking at them as children, it's still like this stuff took place when I was a kid, right? But like the level to which I see the experiences of the children as being infinitely more relatable than these super grown 30-somethings is mind-blowing. I wanted to hear about Burl when you were a kid and how your perception of her being an adult and what that looked like.
Oh, okay. So I'll bundle it. So what I was going to say about Moesha was the thing that really fried my brain was that, yes, they are older than us. But I mean, at this point, right, we can name the friends who are their age, those. So they were the seniors and juniors when we started Howard. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm like, even though we're not the same age, their age is not that foreign. But the idea of having like a teenager, and we do know some of our peers who have teenage children, but just the idea of having a teenager and a spouse and another child, and just like the way they navigated that and their comfortability in being like, my main goal is raising these kids and then running this Saturn dealership. and then maybe once every 7 episodes we go on a date, and it's such a big moment that we're able to leave the house. That is why I felt like they felt so much older. And my mother also, she had me at 34. So she, back in the day, our parents, they were older parents. But like,
Geriatric.
right, and my dad was geriatric, like he had me at 45. So that I was always acutely aware that I had older parents, but in hindsight, I'm like, that also is why I think I had a lot of the experiences I had, because my parents had lived, and so they understood what it would mean to take me certain places, and they also had the wherewithal, financially and just logistically, to be like, okay, so this is what we're doing. You go on to summer camp every summer. We're going on vacation. You're going to go take dance class. New York, you live in New York City, so you're going to know all of New York City from birth, right? Like, you're going to know the Met and the Bronx Zoo and Harlem and just the whole city. But yeah, I mean, my mom is crazy, so she always been crazy. That's a whole other. You got to bring her in. You should probably have her on the show.
I have every intention of having your mother on the show. Be clear. I want to work out some of the kinks first. You were good, like I'm starting slowly. Like when I'm bringing in the big dogs. I'd like to have the two of you together. One, because I do not trust that your mother will effectively execute a YouTube live without your assistance anyway. So you're going to have to be there. But two, I think it would be really fun to talk to you all together. And the two of you all were so delightful on your show, the Wake Up with WBM. But what do you call it in the evening? Do you still call it the wake up?
Yeah,
Making that up. It was still the wake up.
Just waking up your mind.
Wake up your mind. Yes. So like, well, yes. When do we feel like real grown-ups? Or do you feel like a real grown-up? Like I am so clear that I'm grown as fuck, right? I know I'm grown, right? I have a car, I have responsibilities, I have a kid. I do grown up stuff. Like I look out for children. You know what I mean? Like when I'm out in the world, like I interact with children. Like it's clear that I'm an adult and they're a child, and I feel responsible for them. But yet there's a lot of like Frank and Dee Mitchell's. Even I would say Hakeem's mom, right? Like Hakeem's family was poor, and she was constantly between jobs, and they didn't have food to eat. I would still say she certainly probably felt, and I didn't mean to make it sound like that, but like that she would be a lot more grown than we were too. It wasn't just the settled, you know what I mean? It wasn't just the fact that the Mitchells were kind of clear on what their life was going to look like in 10 years. It was just that they were old. I don't know. Like, and again, I know they're boomers. They didn't have hip hop. Like we have all these things that are keeping us young, but like, well, I still feel like a fucking kid. I still dress like a teenager. That might be part of it.
That is, I mean, I think part of it is not part of it. All of it is just the mind, and I think that like some people, when they, not even when they have kids, because there's some people who don't have kids who just settle into that. Some people, either that's what's comfortable for them, that's what they believe is the next step. They just get into these grooves of like routine and complacency. And so for me, I feel less grown. Like to me, the pinnacle of adulthood is Khadijah James. Like to me, she would, even though she had 10 roommates, she also had 400 employees. She had her own magazine. She had all the boys. You know what I mean? Like, she had the girls too. They just didn't show those episodes. And so that, like, I still don't feel as grown as Khadijah James. And definitely not as grown. Max, what'd you say?
I'm watching us, by the way. Oh. I'm taking the kiddos.
And definitely not as grown as Maxine Tony at Law, or you can mute us, or
I'm trying.
Why don't you just turn the volume down?
I don't know how to do this shit.
You talk about how young you feel, but then you can't even turn the volume down.
I mean, it just seemed like it's supposed to be a button that say mute. Like it was. Okay, it's done. It's done now. It's done now.
We made it. But so for me, I think it's also because, one, we live in this world that creates these arbitrary markers, and the life that I'm living, there is no precedent for, right? And that's a big thing I'm interrogating in my own art. It's like a gay man who doesn't aspire to have children. There is no blueprint, and who's living openly, right? There is no blueprint for my life. While it is a life that has been lived for generations, I'm not the first gay man, gay black man to walk. We have not seen what that looks like. And so because I don't have these markers, I'm like, well, I guess I'm still just a child, like until I guess I'll die. And then I'll be like, oh, I guess I was grown. I do feel grown when the bills come, but then I just don't know.
Right, me too. Saying you, I used to live in your apartment, so you probably still get bills with my name on it that I have not opened. And there's a reason they didn't get my address when I left. That's really interesting, but I hadn't thought about it that way. Like because there is no, and I'll say even though I am a parent and I obviously stand in the long tradition of single black parents and single mothers in the Western world, period. That because I still don't see a blueprint for the way I live my life, because it's like, and not just like the, yeah, I'm still partying, I'm still dating, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's easy to kind of reduce it to that, right? Like, oh, this is what makes you different than other parents. It's the fact that you're still, in the streets or that you're honoring your desire to have a life outside of your child. Like, yeah, that's a part of it. But I think also it's just the way that we interact with the world, period, the way that we interact with our children, right? The children of this village, because like you said, we've got a bunch of them between us. Like I think the level of honesty, like that I told Naima you're a hater sometimes. You know what I mean? We talked about that and like we had like a whole because she had been,
Well,
saying
you
like she's sensitive and stuff like that.
tell that
Huh?
story. So what Jamilah did, Jamilah got Naima's feelings hurt because Naima took Jamilah's phone and like started sending me messages or whatever, which is totally fine. And then she started trying to play the dozen. She being Naima started playing the dozen. So I was keeping it cute because she's 7, but Jamilah was feeding her information, and so Naima is saying all these things back to me, and I'm like, oh, little girl got time. And so my thing is, if you're going to be in my village, if you're going to be my goddaughter, you are going to slay the children in the schoolyard. You know what I mean? Like so.
Absolutely. Yes.
I hit her with a 1-2.
Yes.
Was a little too intense. And then finally she was like,
No.
and she was like, I'm sorry. That wasn't me that said it. That was my mother. And she was like, mommy was telling me to say these things. And I said, there's a lesson in that, Naima. Use your own mind. Think for yourself. Because your mother have you out here looking lost. Unless she's telling you something safety. You got to follow those rules. But other than that, use your own mind. And so you had her out here. So continue. I'm a hater.
So I actually was not. That's so funny because I was actually going to affirm what you do as a hater. I was going to say like, yes, I had to contextualize it, but it wasn't like, hey, some people are mean, you just have to deal with it. You know what I mean? It's like oftentimes adults will just let those jokes get lost on a child, right? So like at some point you'll figure it out, or you run back to tape in your mind and you'll be like, wait, this was sarcasm, or like, oh, he was making fun of me, or oh, like maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, no, I want you to understand the way that he interacts with you. It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. This is a way that we use language, right? So we talk about comedy. Like, so beyond just like, you got to be ready for the schoolyard, you got to be able to roast. I'm like, I also want you to be able to construct a good joke. Like when you make those roasts, like you're not the kid who's just going to go for, yeah, like it's easy to just say the meanest possible thing, right? There's a kid who's like, that's why your parents died in that car accident. It's like, no, it's what, like what
Your
can
mama
you identify as right, right. But like, what can you say about this person that is going to, hit back at that? What did you just say? Wait, I missed what you said. What did you say? Your mama what?
I said it's not that's why your parents died in that car accident. It's that's why your mama can't drive.
Right. Well, I'm a good driver now, Will. I be
You still,
driving. I'm good.
still, it ain't about you. I'm saying she couldn't
I
drive.
know
That's why.
too. That's in general. Oh, like right. Like I ain't have no car. But even that, like I don't want you to be the one because like I didn't have a car. So I didn't have a car for a long time when I got here to LA. I didn't have a car because I was new, like I hadn't driven in a long time and I had to like take some classes, get, comfortable driving again. There were things I wanted in a car. So it took me right. Well, I'm saying no. The point I'm trying to make though is that, but I want her to understand, like, no, you don't make the "that's why your mama can't drive" joke because it could be like, oh, she's taking her time trying to pick out the right car and get comfortable driving, or she can't afford a car, right? So that I want her to understand that I did.
The
It was
joke
not
was
my fault. It was the technology.
no, it is a technology. I was saying the joke is not that's why your parents got into a car accident. The joke to that same kid, not to you, would be that's why your mama can't drive. Parentheses. That's why they got into the car
Right.
accident. Awful
Exactly.
thing. Don't ever say that.
Awful. Yes. Yes. You made it so much darker than it already was. But yes, exactly. And that's where our minds go, right? And so sometimes we can't help it. Sometimes we have to like, we had to rein it in a little bit. But like, but talking to her about that, like, no, don't make the joke about, something like that, because it could be that this person is food insecure and that's why their lunches suck, right? It could be, don't make fun of somebody's clothes pants being too short, right? Like, they don't buy their own clothes. There's a good chance that like they can't get another pair of pants, right? But there's something that they've said or done, or just the way you can flip whatever they said about you on them to be, funny. So it's like having those conversations, like making sure that she understands the tough love and the jokes that she's getting from Uncle Will. But like, I will say, my child believes herself to be part of our crew. Mm-hmm. She started group chats, right? Like, she wants, and you have an Android, but like, she literally created like a group FaceTime with my girlfriends. She was not with me. She was with her dad, right? And it's like, because I want to talk to everybody. And so like, if I were having a FaceTime with y'all and we were at my house, together, she would get to pop in and say hi and have her moment. So she would just like, well, I'm missing my aunties and them. I want to have this call. There's so many adults, and not just people in our generation. I'm sorry, not just our elders, but like even our peers who would be like, that's not a child's place. A child shouldn't think of these adults as well. But I think she should.
Well, this is my thing. I think that it's all cute now when she's 7, but when she's 12, she's getting blocked. And so it's like, how do we manage that? You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's all cute now when she's on the group FaceTime and when she's sliding in the DMs on IG and all she's doing is talking about playing with her dolls and all of this stuff. And it's like, that's all cute. But then when she's 12 and she has a lot more cognitive capabilities, and so she's really starting to think that we're peers. And it's like, little girl, I love you to death, past death, back into life, but I don't care about these little kids on the playground. And you know too much now, right? Like, you have too much cognitive ability that understanding some of the stuff that's going on between me and Uncle du jour is like, I don't know that you need to have this full-time access, right? And so I think that it's not so much about being like in a child's place, but just about like, the teenage years are just going to get awkward boots. And so it's like making sure that we set that up so that that doesn't become like a fall from grace. But that it's like, and now this is time for us to explore ourselves separate from each other, safely and responsibly. And then we come back together to college, when everything's
that's when you all want to. Everyone always talks about like college age kids. Like, I'm guilty of it too. Like, ooh, I'm gonna tell you some stuff about your mama one day. But like, I want to redefine a child's place. So it's like, at 12, we're definitely gonna be blocking like the social media, like ungrouping. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason she has a profile with her name attached to it. And like, even if she, whether I decide we decide she's able to use those profiles or not, like, no, she definitely will not be looking at any of my messages or able to follow me or anything like that, when she's 12. But I think at 12, I would still like her to be able to call the crew for a group FaceTime, right? Like, and I think, again, there becomes differences in language, like the sassiness and some of the things that we can kind of laugh off at 7. We're like, okay, at 12, and you're super clear why that's inappropriate. Like, you can make a joke about me, your mom, to my friends, but like, you're not going to sit here and just like go in on me and kiki like y'all are all, you know what I mean? Like, the thing that we might laugh off at 7. But I want her at 12 to still want to call you all, right? Like, I want her to still feel connected to you all. And I think that is something that's different.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, I think the ad hoc and, it's just understanding, I won't say a child's place, because I think that there's a hierarchy in that, that I don't want to perpetuate, you know what I mean? Because I think that, like, I don't want to subjugate children and just make them feel like because you are younger than that you don't have agency. But I think that there's something to be said that, like, we are in 2 different life places. And so our relationship, not about you are in a child's place, it's where we are in our lives are 2 different places. And so how our relationship is structured is going to look different than it does with my peers. And so certain access that my peers might have, a younger person, also
would
a child.
Right, of course. Yeah. Right. And to be fair, she doesn't have them now. You know what I mean? She doesn't have completely unfettered access to, like, sometimes the checking a DM or looking at certain things was just a matter of her kind of like slipping away with the phone or, or me losing track of her for a second. It's not like, oh yeah, here's the ritual that we have where you're able to scrutinize everything that I do and social media, et cetera, et cetera. I do want to redirect before we play our questions game that we play every week. I want to go back to Howard for a second. Honestly, well, maybe I don't. I don't know. I was gonna say I want to go back to Howard all the time. Like, but I want to go back to our Howard. I don't want to go back to these kids' Howard. Like, no shade. Y'all might have air conditioning in all the buildings and whatever, but I liked my Howard quite a bit. But I want to go back to Howard for a second because I think, and we're not going to really have the Kamala talk. I'm processing. I have a lot of Kamala processing to do, and some things that I've been. Yes, there's a lot to it there, but I will say I want to speak briefly to seeing not just Howard but the HBCU experience, like, and now that it's having this public moment that it has every few years, right? There'll be some, famous commencement speaker, or when that gentleman gifted the Morehouse class, debt relief last year. There's, things will happen, or Melinda Gates, not Melinda Gates. Yeah, Melinda Gates' gift recently, right, to a number of HBCUs, or Beyonce's homecoming, right? There's this moment where it's like, there are these institutions that are very much front and center in our worlds in so many ways, and we're long removed from college. There are a lot of HBCU people who, like, the fact that they went to an HBCU and what HBCU they went to is so much a part of their identity for the rest of their lives. um, I'll say it's part of my information, right? It's part of what informed me and made me who I am. But I don't introduce myself to people as Jamilah from Howard, at 36 years old, even though Howard is deep in my DNA. I just want to make that distinction, like, because we're talking about college a lot, and we're not those folks, But there are people who eat,
Right.
sleep, and breathe. I went to Howard. I went to Howard. That's a big part of, like, I went to an HBCU. That's not us, but it is. It's always interested when the HBCU is on the public menu, right? Everyone's consume. Yeah.
I mean, I think that some of that is in me. Some of that I went to Howard is in me. I do think that that's a part of me. Maybe not in a self-defining kind of way, but just kind of a part of it. My mom went to an HBCU as well,
Yeah.
so and she was first generation college, where she and then her younger siblings as well went to Norfolk State University. So HBCU culture is a big part of my identity, and I've also kind of recentered it more recently because especially I work in the nonprofit art sector heavily, as well as also in my, commercial creative endeavors. And I, until these recent moments, there was kind of this judgment and like asterisk, I'll say, for people who went to H,
Mm.
that I've kind of aggressively tried to recenter it as a reclamation, kind of the same way I center my blackness, right? Like as a way of being like, I will not
Say
allow.
more. Say more. Well, when you say an asterisk, do you mean that it was thought of as less than, or like special
Sure,
circumstance?
sure. Special, both and. Like, so I think that there's two mindsets, right? So the one mindset is that, like, oh, you went to that black people school, parentheses, I think black people suck, so your school is never going to be on the level. And then there are other people who I think that they're like, oh, you're great, but it's because you went to that black people school, so you just, like, you were, like, pre-affirmative action screened, and you've been able to, like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like, it's not considered in the
Yeah.
same way. Insert whatever the top program is for whatever you're doing. In my field, that's going to be Yale School of Drama, Juilliard, NYU, and that, okay, our program is comparable because our graduates are putting out. They're like, oh, it's the same way black people have always been given whatever. You guys were given that. You know what I mean? And so that's why I've kind of recentered it to be like,
Because a lot of people think we get things. Like a lot.
yeah,
Like, do you know there are a lot of white people who think we just go to college for free? They think affirmative action is literally like, if you're black and you can get into a college, you can just go. Like, there's so many people who think it's that, like, that the fact that there aren't more of us in college is because we're just not going. You know what I mean? As opposed to, like, it's challenging to get there. It's like, well, they give you college because they think we get stuff.
yeah. So I'm not going to say that I am that person, and my mother went to Norfolk State University, which would not be considered an elite HBCU if there's a hierarchy within them, which I think we have to deconstruct as well. And I've been guilty
Mhm.
of myself in some ways, but I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's my thought. That's the
I'm
tea.
glad. I appreciate you owning that. I was like, and Holmes has been guilty of perpetuating this hierarchy. Holmes. Um, but no, I am 100% in agreement about that. Like the whole idea of a black ivy or the elite, blah blah blah, whatever. Like we don't need any special name or nickname for the Howard Hampton, blah blah blah. It's like we get it. Certain schools are larger. They have larger endowments. They have better brand. Right. I don't even know why I said Hampton. Sorry.
Hampton.
That's where my Hampton. I'm sorry. I'll never be too progressive to shade Hampton. Like they've done it to themselves. I'll hold my
There's
tongue on
so much
that.
more in that. That's another episode. That's not just
That's a
about.
whole other episode.
That's yeah. That's a whole other network, a
Yeah.
whole other show.
Whole other network, whole other show. We did have a few questions from viewers. One that we got early on, someone asked, "How did you nip the bullying?" So I assume they're thinking of when I said when I first saw you at school. I remember being worried that you might have some challenges, or that there would be people, particularly other men,
About
who
naive.
didn't treat you well. Oh, you so smart. How did I nip the bullying with Naima? There were only a few incidents, and I don't think that this kid was a terror in the way that or a threat, or disturbed in the way that a lot of children who are bullies are. And so we spoke to administrators at the school pretty quickly, and the kids were separated.
So you
So yeah,
snitch.
um, yeah, I did snitch. It's only snitching if you all are co-conspirators. You can
You
call it tattletelling.
you
It's
snitch.
snitch. It's
You snitch
snitching when it's
on the
co-conspirator. If
car.
we did something together and I roll on you, we snitching. If you just bothering me, I don't. Oh, you don't. What am I beholden to you for? Ain't no code of the streets in kindergarten. And let me tell you something. I will admit, my child is never the one who wants to go to the teacher or the principal or anybody. But I don't give a fuck if I find out that one of you little motherfuckers has said or done or touched a hair on that child's head. I'm the snitch. I'm the tattletale. I'm the one who went to the teacher. I'm the one who went to the authority. Even though I am also hyper aware of her social status and do try to think about, like, is this a situation in which I can tell a teacher or a principal that my daughter's aggrieved and she can still be cool on the playground the next day and be okay? Or is this a situation where perhaps she's having an outsized reaction and me going to school authorities is just going to make this worse? Are we drinking tonight? Yes, we are. Will is drinking, what was it, half lemonade, half iced tea, half what?
Lemonade with a little bit of a lot of bit of whiskey.
So Will's drinking lemonade with a splash of whiskey, and I am drinking Earl Stevens Vineyard Mango Scotto. I am a drink. Will admit, like, please note this, there's so much left in this cup. Our girlfriend bought me this very strong wine, and it is very strong. I feel like I should just call it like a
Oh,
rum punch or something,
it's not wine.
huh? This
It's
is a
not wine.
juice product.
Mango Scotto? That's not. What grape is that? What grape is that?
Muscat. It's a Muscat grape.
Not a Mango Scotto. That is a well, what are those things called that we're not supposed to be eating right now? I was going to say a GDI, but
A
that's not it.
GMO. GMO. Definitely genetically modified wine, because you're right. There's not a mango scotto, and there's probably some pear juice or something else in here to stretch it out. I don't know, but it is strong. It is mighty, and it is sold in the wine section of
You're drinking a high
stores.
C.
Understandably, yeah. You said what?
You're drinking a high C.
I'm not. No, I wouldn't call it a high C. I would put it more in the category of, like, you know how they
Oku.
have like Malibu. Yes. Shout out to Boku. I feel like Boku was the older parent thing. I feel like the kids who had young parents was not getting Boku juice boxes. For those of you all who are not old millennials and would not remember this, so Boku juice boxes were like tall, right? They
They were
were like,
yeah.
yeah, they were like the size of that cup, and they were white and square, and like they didn't have a straw.
Mhm.
That I remember. They didn't have a straw, and they were about like one and a half times the size of a normal juice box. I remember one of my first incidents of playing myself. I had a Boku juice that I did not finish. I was in kindergarten, and it was a lot of juice. So I just, it had a little tab that like pulled open. I just folded the tab back over, put it in my lunchbox with the intention of holding it up so that it wouldn't spill out. But of course, I didn't remember that. So I'm like, you know, bopping
Mhm.
through the hallway of school as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, dripping Boku juice everywhere.
That was
Probably led to some, pretty sure I led to some ants or something in my classroom. But it was so much juice that I felt bad wasting it. I didn't want to get in trouble. Like, you didn't drink your juice. Like, there was so much juice in that box. So I was trying to bring it home. Okay, we're going to play a game before we get out of here. It's called, let me ask you something real quick. As you know, as a beloved uncle and godfather who spends a lot of time around these kids in our village, they don't always choose the most opportune time to hit you with a difficult question, right? And even if you do have all the time in the world to answer their silly questions, that doesn't mean that you're prepared for it. So I'm going to put 90 seconds on the clock. And I am going to ask you, hold on, let me put my 90 seconds on, putting 90 seconds on the clock. And I want to see just how many of these difficult questions that parents and other friends to children find themselves faced with. Are you ready?
I mean, sure.
Okay. Uncle Will, why aren't my parents married to each other?
Are not married because two people don't have to be married to create a family.
Are you going to get married?
Not at this time.
Can I marry you when I get older?
I think that would be illegal in most states, and no, you can't. But marriage is an extension of romantic love, which I don't think you yet have the capacity to understand.
What does romantic mean?
Romantic is something that you don't yet understand, but I would classify it as like what Ken feels for Barbie. Different from
Like
what
they're besties and they like,
no, so Skipper and
so like
Barbie
they're
have
besties? They're sisters.
exactly. See what I did there?
So when a lady and a man lay down together and make a baby, then there's a baby. What happens when you and my mom says that, like, if you love a man, you would have like a boyfriend or a husband? Like, so when you two lay down together, will you make a baby?
Not at this time
Are
because
you going to have a baby?
not at this time.
If
Questions,
I
young person.
was, I know, like, you're just so fucking confident. That's 90 seconds. That's 90 seconds.
No, what else you got? Come on. I'm ready. I'm
You
ready. I'm
ready
ready.
some more? You ready? Ready? Okay. If 13 cents isn't, this is my favorite question Naima ever asked me. If 13 cents isn't enough to buy anything, why does it even exist?
If 13 cents is not enough to buy anything, why does it even exist? That's one of my pageant tricks. Ask say the question again. Um, because you can get more than one, you can get 13 cents more than one time, right? So if we look at it's just like a shirt is not a whole outfit, but a shirt exists. You still have to put on pants and socks and shoes and underwear. So things require pieces. An arm is not a whole body, but you have an arm. Nothing exists as a whole. Things start, you start as a little peanut, and then eventually a head came, and there was hair, and there were eyes, a nose, leg, two legs, depending on the person, maybe only one leg. We all come out a little different. So a piece of something exists so that eventually we can get to the whole. So call me when you got more than 13 cents, because this conversation costs more than 13 cents.
You are ready, my love, for children.
Not interested.
Congratulations. You're certified. You don't have to be interested. But considering
You
pandemic rules, I think you just became a certified teacher. So please go free and educate the nation's youth via Zoom. We need you.
no, because in New York they're making them go into the school building. I can't be a part of that. Wear your mask.
Whew, child. Can you
Um,
can you imagine being in a room with somebody's dirty ass kids right now? I don't even want to be in a room with my dirty ass kids during corona, like
no,
kids during
or
corona.
ass janitor or just the whole dirty ass teacher, just people in there or getting on the subway. I can't. There was one question I saw people ask where they could find Wake Up with WBM. So you can follow me on
Oh wait, hold
Instagram.
on, wait, William, hold on. That was part of the outro. Hold on, I am a
Oh,
little
you
bit
know,
of a professional. I had not seen. I know, I understand. I like the finale was William. Just let me do my thing. Thank you. William, it was so wonderful to have you in this space. This was so much fun, my love. Where can folks watching this keep up with you, and where can they watch the Wake Up?
yeah, so you can keep up with me at Rhinestone Stare. You can also go to my website, rhinestonestaircase.com. We also have these wonderful Black and LGBTQ intersection pins because being pro Black and pro LGBTQ are not mutually exclusive. So that's
Take the
Rhinestone.
pen off so they can see it. Take the pen
Oh,
off
my
so
God,
I'm
all these
turning into your
colors.
mom now. Can you
Yes.
take it off so they can see it? Yes.
So as you can
William designed this beautiful black LGBT flag
yes, which
that is
celebrates.
available.
So there are many flags, and you can use more than one. I'm not saying this has to be the only one. Other flags celebrate inclusivity within the LGBT community, which I am absolutely a proponent and advocate for. This one celebrates the intersection of a pro-Black and a pro-LGBTQ identity. People like Jamilah, people like myself, so many people I've encountered along the way confirm that they are not mutually exclusive. That is at rhinestonestaircase.com, which is a riff on the Langston Hughes poem "Life for Me Ain't Been No Crystal Stair." But as you can see, for me, it's been Rhinestone. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Rhinestone Stare. So,
William, you
and
know that you are to me. What did you say?
I said that's where my show lives as well, Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
Yes,
So,
Wednesdays
this
at 7 p.m. Eastern. Yes, this was also a tribute to, see, William introduced me to, well, I mean, I knew of her because I read Vibe and hip hop magazines or whatever, but Will really was part of my introduction to Radio Wendy, right? A lot of you all know Wendy Williams, the talk show host, but we fell in love with Radio Wendy, and Will, as a native New Yorker, had been listening to her on the radio for many years. And so
right.
the delight of so I guess there's also some missing context for all five of you all that watch this show. Like, so Wendy Williams' original show is this radio show that was the most raggedy but perfect thing, because she would eat, she would drink, she would go silent while she thought about shit. She was just being herself on the radio, which, like, again, it's the radio. So it's not even like you're getting the benefit of seeing her. Like, there'd be times where I'd be like,
Yeah.
ugh, wow. And I love that. I fell in love with that. Like that just because in between those, moments of contemplation and just like complete disconnect from the fact that you are before a live audience, was this really fascinating conversation that would be taking place between her and Charlemagne, who was her co-host at the time, and her guest. And so that is in many ways my inspiration for this show. And I know that, and as is the Wake Up with WBM, which is a
I'm
delightful, highly produced piece. Like, he's giving you pop culture commentary, he's giving you history, he's giving you personal kikis, he's interacting with fans. It's just a really lovely, lovely show that William does every Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, live on Facebook. And I wanted us to get to be Charlemagne and Wendy, or Sugar Bear and Black Lily as we were in college, or just Will and Jamilah in public together and have a little key. So this was fun. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that we get to do this again, especially since I
yeah.
won't be able to see you
Thank
physically
you.
for a while.
Thank you. I'm trying. I mean, I
So,
got flight vouchers since all my flights were canceled this year, so I'm trying to get to LA once it's safe. But y'all, California y'all not doing right. I don't know what's happening out there.
I don't, we were better than you at first. We were looking at y'all like that, right? It was like, New York, but also New York, right? It's hard to control there because it's so population dense and everybody's on the subways and stuff. But like, this should be relatively easy here because we all live spread out as hell.
In
We
two,
don't walk, we don't get on the train, you would think. And then we went from like, we're doing good, we're taking this seriously, shelter in place, to like the bars open up tomorrow. Godspeed. And here we are. So with that, I love you to the moon and back, William Bryant Miles. You're the best, and you have to say it all, William Bryant Miles, when you say his name. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I know this was a big night for the DNC, and some of you all are probably watching Joe Biden accept the nomination for the highest office in the land and all that stuff, and that's cool too. And you're catching this on the replay. We had a lot of fun. You should be here. And next week, I will have Nicole Cliff, Slate Karen Feeding, parenting goddess, and founder of the Toast, and just the president of all things very internet in so many ways. My friend and yours, she will be here. So please tune back in to The Kids Are Asleep, Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Also, I keep listening out for my child because she left like 15 minutes before the show started. So I keep being like, oh shit, Naima. Oh shit, Naima, because I'm used to like having to be on call for her and she's not here. So with that, I'm about to smoke some weed and have some fun. I love you all. Have a great night.